Hello and welcome. My name is Romke Wijngaarden and I'm one of the channel managers here at VanillaIP, your trusted provider for communication solutions. VanillaIP work closely with Akixi, who provide easy-to-use call and contact analytics and reporting solutions. Akixi is an integral part of our product offering and we've been working with them for many years. And now we are delighted to provide our resellers, i.e. you, with the opportunity to offer your customers a free of charge 25-day Akixi trial. We have Simon College from Akixi here today. He will show you the reports that will be available to your customers during the trial. So the aim here is for you, the partners, to prove to your customer that you can add value by identifying inefficiencies, bad trends, and irregularities around call and interaction handling. So the objective here is for you to show that by providing insight, by providing visibility, and by providing clarity around call data, that you allow your customers to optimize their business processes, to increase customer experience, and to reduce costs. Very, very powerful. We believe that the Akixi solution can be very useful for deployment in environments such as switchboard, reception area, where lots of calls coming in, handled by specific people to transfer those calls to specific individuals or departments, internal or external IT support help desks, where SLA performance is very important, or general customer services functions, whereby lots of calls coming in to individuals that need to provide update on status of orders or ordering new things or complaints and things like that. So lots of interactions, or in general inbound sales and outbound sales environments. So really Akixi comes into its own in environments whereby a client type service is provided and client interactions take place. So how does the trial work? Well, we try to keep this as simple as possible. But in essence, the first thing that will need to happen is to organize a call, an introduction call with your customer. We set up the trial in conjunction with you, the partner, but we'd like to be able for the customer to become self-sufficient and start running the reports themselves. 10 days in, we'd welcome an evaluation call with your customer to see how they're getting on, what reports are they using, what are the outcomes, are there any efficiencies that they can make at this stage? And then 25 days in, we have a final evaluation call with the customer, and then it's decision time. And is the solution going to stay in place, or will they stop the trial and finish it all off? So let's now go through what reports are available, and I shall hand you over to Simon, who'll take it from here. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Romke. I really appreciate that overview. So yeah, my name is Simon College. I'm a business development manager at Akixi and based out of the south of the country. But obviously, as you'll be aware, we have national coverage with our friends from VanillaIP. So the solution I'm going to take you through today, as Romke has outlined, is a call and contacts analytics solution. We offer the facility for you to promote this service on the trial basis and for your customers to get very valuable insights into their communication, into their inbound calls, outbound calls, internal calls coming into their telephony platforms. So what I'll show is some key reports that gain a lot of traction for VanillaIP partners and clients alike. So the report that you're seeing on screen here is quite simply illustrating a high-level summary of calls into an organization. We can see from left to right, each day of a working week, the volume of calls presented to that company as a whole, and then the volume of those calls that have been answered. This pretty much gives you very clear information around volume of calls that have been abandoned. So we can see here the volume of calls that have been abandoned on each of these days and the success rate of handling inbound calls, i.e. answering those calls. We then look at that information in more specific detail to see if any of those callers called back later on that day or were called back by the organization. So what we are left with is our true golden opportunities. These are unreturned calls. So calls that the organization needs to return to maximize the opportunity of dealing with an existing client, or maybe it's a new client trying to communicate with the organization. So that unreturned call piece we can develop further in other reports. This type of information is available statistically, as you can see on screen here, but we can also give a graphical representation of this information. So we can show it in bar chart, pie chart, any type of graphical representation that works for an individual or an organization. As we all know, some people like to look at statistics, some people like to look at graphical information. So both formats or abilities to view that information supported within the Akixi solution. We then move towards live information, so real-time information. This is, of course, a wallboard illustration of information about calls coming into and potentially out of a telephony platform, and customers can select the various metrics or information they want to provide via this type of interface. This could be on a supervisor or a manager's PC, or it could be on a smart TV or an LCD screen in a particular office area, and used to motivate that part of the workforce, keep them up to speed with regards to how they are working with regards to the KPIs or metrics that they are needing to achieve on a daily or a weekly basis. This information is completely user configurable. There are up to 400 different data sets that you can apply to the Akixi reports or wallboards. So it's very easy to bespoke or tweak the information. So quite simply, just to highlight a few of these tiles, we have information around calls that are currently waiting to be answered by the organization. We can see how many calls are currently active with staff members. We get an overall total of the inbound calls provided into the organization, and volume of calls answered, and of course our abandoned call volume, and then ultimately our unreturned calls. So it's a very clear, concise, and easy to consume layout of information for any type of organization. Okay. We also have, we talked about on the first report, unreturned lost calls. This is a type of report that generates a hell of a lot of attachment for our partners, and the reason being because it acts as a safety net for any organization that is receiving incoming inquiries that could potentially be from existing clients or potential clients who are looking to buy a product, a service, or a solution. So of course fits pretty much any business out there. Everybody wants to ensure that they maximize every opportunity that's coming through on their telephones. Companies will lose or miss or have abandoned calls because people may call outside of office hours. People may call when there's a high volume of calls coming into the organization. Obviously through COVID times, workforces have fluctuated because people have been off work. So, it may be losing calls because we haven't got enough, if you like, bums on seats to handle those calls. So this report will give that safety net to capture that information. So what we're seeing on this particular report is quite simply the calls that are in green are calls that were lost or abandoned at some point today, but have been returned, either called back into the organization or been called back by the organization. The red calls, as we said before, are those golden opportunities. These are the calls that we missed first time round, but we're capturing that information. We make it available to the supervisor or various other people within the business so they can act upon this intelligence and call these opportunities back. Simply a PR piece of, we missed your call earlier today, how can we help you now, Mr. Client or Mr. Potential Client? So it gives you, as I say, that safety net to capture this information. We can also assign a average order value. Most organizations will know volume of calls that come into particular areas, what that works out to as an average order value. That can be applied to this report. So for example, here we can see we've got £700 of potential revenue sat in our unreturned lost call report. We can also apply a strike rate. So if a customer would typically turn 5 calls into one piece of business, so a strike rate of 1 in 5 calls turning into business, that algorithm or that formula can be added to the report as well. We can also run reports on lost calls from the previous day. So if people haven't been able to manage to call back all the unreturned lost calls for the previous day, that report can be pushed out at the end of the day or the next morning as a scheduled report, and once again shared with other people within the business so they can act upon that and push the opportunity to turn an unreturned lost call into revenue, into profit. A report that has seen a lot of attachment, specifically over the COVID period, is the ability for organizations to see their extension users or their agents live and the current state and activity that they've undertaken on any given day. As we've seen and seeing again now, people returning to work from home, and this, once they move from the office to home, can disconnect them with some information that's available to them and information that drives their working habits and behaviors. With this type of information, a supervisor or a manager can see each of their team members, whether they're in the office or at home working. We can see the current activity that they're involved in, and then the activity that they've been involved in so far today. So this extension list is showing me that currently I've got one of my members of staff involved in a communication. The other guys are currently idle, available to take calls. We could see the reverse of that, of all of these currently on green, and then calls stacking up. So do we need to put an overflow in place at peak or busy times? We can also represent this information as mini wall boards for each of our team members. So this shows similar information, but again, in a wallboard format that's easy to consume and easy to act upon. Okay, and then finally, a hunt group list. Lots of organizations, and I'm sure you have set many of these up on your own telephony platforms, will utilize hunt groups for inbound calls, and those calls to be answered or handled by the correct team with the correct skills. This report simply shows you each hunt group coming into an organization, and again, their current activity, but also their activity for the day so far. So once again, if we see calls stacking up into a particular hunt group, we may want to ensure that next time that happens, there's an overflow in place. So after a period of time, those calls pass to a secondary answer point where those calls can be dealt with. So thus increasing the ability to handle calls, be dynamic with regards to the way you handle those calls, and ultimately make sure that the customer experience is of paramount importance and you're acting upon that. So, excuse me, hopefully you can see the Akixi solution is a highly customizable reporting and analytics solution that you can utilize to get more traction and more wallet share with your clients, and of course offering them the value of real business insights into their inbound and outbound communication, and demonstrate with various reports how they can increase their own revenues, customer experience, and ultimately profitability. Thanks very much for your time.
Well, thank you very much, Simon. Thank you for that valuable insight, and thanks for listening all. Should you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us on either sales@vanillaip.com or 0800 970 0971. Thank you very much for your time, and speak soon.